All right, let's get to the Big Ten championship game between Oregon and Penn State. Oregon three and a
Can I
half
get an
point.
instant reaction on you for SMU being an ACC championship game? Man, did I take some shit. Especially when SMU went out to Nevada and looked like ass. Complete ass.
Oh, this is the Big Ten. We'll get to the ACC. That's next. Hold
Oh,
your
sorry.
horses.
Sorry.
Oh,
Getting
literally
excited.
hold your ponies. Big Ten championship, Penn State, Oregon, 8 Eastern on CBS. Winner, Oregon wins the 1 seed. Penn State wins and Georgia wins. Penn State's the 1 seed. They would be ranked number one for the first time this century, which is stunning. Oregon 3.5 point favorite here. Total 50.5. This game will be played in Indianapolis. Uh,
Didn't score an
I've already
offensive
received
point.
I've already
Did-
received hate mail. I've already received hate tweets. I've already received hate DMs. I bet Penn State plus 3.5. I'm siding with small game James, who has lost 11 straight against top five teams. It's been a disaster. But number one, I don't think there's any clear elite team this year. I don't know how many times I could say that this year. I've been saying it since week one. I don't think Oregon is one, even though they're undefeated. And I don't have more than a field goal separating these teams. I make this closer to two-ish, a little less than two, 1.5, two. So if you're going to give me the hook here in a game that I make that low, I'm taking it. And why are we assuming that this is big game Dan? Lanning has lost a ton of small sample size, but a ton of big games. And in a way, Oregon, like this game, motivation wise, I'm sure that they're going to want to win. But in a way, they might be better off losing. Get the 5 seed. They lose this game, they get the 5 seed. I mean, you might get Arizona State than Boise State instead of like Ohio State or Tennessee in the second round. They're going to try. I'm just saying they might end up being better off. But this isn't necessarily like a big game. Both these teams are in the playoffs. Franklin can win this game. He'd still be small game James, people. I make this too. Why do I kind of like it too? Yeah, these teams played like 6 common opponents. You can clearly tell the Penn State run defense is much better than, you can just look at the metrics, is much better than the Oregon run defense. I mean, look at the Purdue ran for 240 on Oregon. Look at Wisconsin. Or I mean, you can go down the list. Illinois. I think Illinois had like 32 rushes for 32 yards against Penn State and 32 rushes for 132 yards against Oregon. Don't quote me on that. I think it's somewhere in that ballpark. The Oregon run defense is vulnerable. Do I think Penn State can run the ball? Yes. That's the whole key to this because if they can't, Aller and known passing situations will be bad because Oregon's pass D is good. They don't have a ton of all-stars in the back end, but they're all solid and they can get a pass rush without having to send guys. So if they know that there's, then you could send a linebacker in there. If you know it's a passing situation, Penn State doesn't have the receivers to beat that. But I
Mhm.
do think Penn State can run the ball. That's the key here. We'll see if Anthony Donka, the right tackle, being out is detrimental because Oregon does have really good pass rushers led by Birch. Nolan Rucci, the Wisconsin transfer, he'll step in. He started last week. Donka's had other injuries earlier this year, so he's played, but he's not as good. It's a drop off. How big? We'll see. He played well last week, but it was Maryland. The Penn State offense, it's really just all about the scheme. Aller's playing better. You have Warren, the ultimate chess piece. He'll play quarterback, running back, tight end, wide receiver. And then Wallace is like your only legit wide receiver. This offense really lacks explosiveness.
Mhm.
Got to drive it down the field. Got to be able to run it. I think they're going to run it here. If they're not, they're going to lose. The other side of the ball, I think the Penn State defense is elite. You got Carter, Harris, King at all three levels that lead that unit. You cannot run on them. You have to hit explosive passes on them through the air. But the Oregon offense is just, I know they got Tez Johnson back. He's the key to this game, but they really lack explosiveness. The run, pass game. I don't think they're going to run it. They're going to be in known passing situations. I think Penn State can get pressure. You pressure Gabriel, his numbers fall off a cliff. It's been like that way his entire career. Oregon does have really good tackles. I still have some questions about the interior of that defensive line. So I don't think James is going to have a ton of success in the ground. And I think Penn State can pressure Gabriel in known passing situations. So, yeah, I think this comes down to Penn State will have more success running the ball. I make it around two. I'm going to take 3.5. And by the way, Oregon's faced two good offenses all year. Is that it?
Yeah.
Two?
Yeah.
Boise and Ohio State. Boise put up 34 and lost by 3 at Oregon. Ohio State put up 31 and lost by 1 at Oregon. So the only two good offenses they faced all year, both at home, one by three. They had 2 kick returns for touchdown against Boise. I know it's a different team now, but they probably should have lost that game, and they easily could have lost the game to Ohio State. So, yeah, I mean, it's a team a couple weeks ago that barely beat Wisconsin. We're back on the landing fade train. I've gotten them. Let's see. I didn't fade them this week. I'm getting you this week, Dan. Small game, James. Give me the hook.
I'm so uncomfortable with this, but I like Penn State. I'm so uncomfortable with this. Look, a
Put
lot
it
of
on the
things.
board.
Oh yeah, yeah. Put it on the board. And you put UNLV. Well, I guess that doesn't count. But yeah, put this one on the board. Let me go ahead and say, like, Nick Singleton is running so much better for Penn State right now during the second half of the season. He had
Yeah, it's huge.
a
He wasn't healthy.
sagging, yeah, he had a sagging number in yards after first contact for the first 4 to 6 games. I remember we handicapped that big time against Ohio State. Like, what happened to the Nick Singleton that was averaging like 5 yards after first contact? He's beefed it up to 3.5 yards. So he is returned. Kotelnicki's best results for success rate explosives all year has been the power run concept with heavy pre-snap motion. You're going to see that here. Oregon's about 50% success rate in defending most run concepts, but they're terrible in short yardage situation. Defensively, 114th in stuff rate. That means Penn State is going to get every first down that they want on short yardage stuff. I think Tyler Warren is the X factor here. He is Brock Bowers. He is what Brock Bowers was to Georgia. He's lined up over 50 times on the line with the offensive lineman as a wideout in the slot. He's all over the place. And why do I mention that being a huge factor here? Because Oregon's defense went up against Colston Loveland of Michigan. And Colston Loveland hauled in 7 of 9 passes. The Ducks threw multiple defenders in the zone at Loveland and just could not force a contested catch. So Tyler Warren's usage here is critical. Kotelnicki's job should be graded on what Warren does in this spot because Penn State should have success. Because if Oregon can't defend Colston Loveland and, and telegraphing what Warren Davis is doing, I mean, come on. This is a much better offense with Tyler Warren. Okay, so on that side of the ball, Warren should have himself a day. I'd hit some props, rushing props, receiving props. When you go to the other side of the ball, you say, well, Oregon's going to have the offense going. Tez Johnson's going to be back. He caught all 3 of his targets that he had against Washington last week. I'm a little wishy-washy on Gabriel's numbers, only because like you read off his 1.4% turnover worthy play rate, and then you realize he has the lowest average depth of target of his career at 7 yards. Like we just got pea shooters out there dinking and dunking over the line of scrimmage. Penn State is going to have some success, I think, also defending Jordan James. I mean, Oregon is all about zone read, inside, outside zone read. The Nittany Lions are the second best defense in the nation. This is the stat that led me to Penn State, especially defensively. Only one defense is better than Penn State in allowing red zone rushing touchdowns. It's Iowa, right? You do not rush for touchdowns against Penn State. That is really bad for Jordan James. I think there's potential for him to get stopped at the goal line. I think there's potential for failed red zones here. Dane Lanning is such a gambler. 4th and 3 doesn't matter what field position is.
Give me some more Gabriel red zone picks under pressure too.
I see Dan Lanning overplaying his hand and Penn State catching him. And if Kotelnicki wants to earn his money, he needs to get Tyler Warren in multiple places and create a little bit of chaos against a secondary that's going to pin their ears back and come after Drew Aller. By the way, stat for Drew Aller, does not have a single turnover worthy play in 100 pressures this season, 100 dropbacks with pressure. I think that all plays out here. Plus, we said it before we started hitting record. Oregon ain't coming out in those Buckeye colors, right? Penn State's going to be fine here. Penn State's going to be fine.
We are on the board. Small game, James, but this isn't a big game. By the way, I think Oregon will be better off if they lose this game. Especially if the 5 seed breaks right and your path is easier. But not being undefeated, getting refocused, Lanning can use that as fuel before the college football playoff. You might get an easier path. It's kind of narrative-y, but they might be better off if they lose. They're not going to obviously try to win. But all right,